and welcome to this week's episode of Cathy's Coffee Break. I want to thank the Dracut Pipeline Awareness Group for putting together a presentation most recently at the American Legion. We are going to hear the presentations today from Carolyn Sellers and Claire Miller, two speakers who spoke at the recent presentation. Enjoy and take some time to take some information or notes on the presentations you're about to hear.
So, like Caroline said, I'm Claire Miller. I'm the Massachusetts State Director with Toxics Action Center, and I'm going to talk briefly because I know you have a longer meeting to get to, but I want to tell you about myself and this tariff or subsidy or tax, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just going to flip the page. So briefly about myself, so Toxics Action Center is a public health and environmental nonprofit. We got our start in 1989 after the Woburn Cancer Cluster. Our mission is to work side by side with communities like yours that are organizing, coming together to clean up or prevent pollution. And I was looking through the files before coming out here tonight about a story I could tell you about some work that we had done in this area, and I found actually one of our most proud moments and victories over our 29 years was in Tewksbury back in 1992. We worked with a woman named Judy who founded an organization called Tewksbury Organized Against Illness and Contamination. Her neighborhood lived next to Rocco's landfill, which was leaking really high levels of arsenic into the groundwater. And over about 9 years, she was able to get that site recognized federally as a Superfund site and initiate a full cleanup. And my organization works with about 100 different groups like yours across New England to provide mentoring, advice, coaching, every kind of tool in your toolbox that you need to organize, get together, get your voices heard, hold polluters accountable, or companies like Kinder Morgan, and actually get government to do the right thing. So that's a little bit about where I'm coming from. One other thing I'll mention about myself is I'm also the co-leader of a statewide coalition called Mass Power Forward. This is a brand new effort. It's really come together because of the pipelines, because of Kinder Morgan, and it's about 150 organizations across the whole state. And the number one goal, I don't know if you can see that when you're in the back, but the number one goal of that is to stop the gas subsidy. And that's really what I want to talk to you about tonight. So what is the subsidy and why does it matter? Okay, so just to go big picture for a moment, bear with me if I'm telling you things you already know. Kinder Morgan is applying to FERC. FERC, when they look at this application, are weighing basically two things. This is a little simplified, but basically two things. On one hand, they're weighing the need for the pipeline. And Kinder Morgan needs to demonstrate to FERC that it's needed by being able to say, we found people who want to buy the gas, so contracts. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, FERC is weighing the damage. How much can Kinder Morgan minimize the damage? And the way that Kinder Morgan will demonstrate that to FERC is by getting access to survey all of the parcels and saying, oh, there's nothing here that we can't fix. There's wetlands that will make them look perfect afterwards. And they'll also try and demonstrate that to FERC by getting all of the state permits, so like the 401 water quality permit. So those are the two things that FERC's looking at. What I want to talk about now is the first bucket. So how does Kinder Morgan demonstrate that the gas is needed? How do they get these contracts? Historically, that has always been by contracting with local heating companies. Remember that. Governor Baker wants to change that. He wants to open it up and actually get folks like you and me, ratepayers, to help get Kinder Morgan have more customers to demonstrate that need. They want us to help buy the gas and subsidize it for electric companies like Eversource. That's pretty outrageous, right? Can I hear? You guys agree? Thank you. So this is totally unprecedented. So just to give you a little bit of timeline, so Governor Baker started this pretty quickly after he got into office. So he initiated to get this mechanism to have you and I subsidize buying this gas on behalf of Eversource for Kinder Morgan last spring. in October, his administration, the Department of Public Utilities, said, yep, we agree, this seems great, let's go ahead. That was immediately appealed. It's still in appeal. However, the electric companies, so Eversource and National Grid, they're just going right along as if it's going to get approved. And so they've already started applying to use this mechanism to get folks like you and I to help buy their gas and give Kinder Morgan what they need. So that brings us to where we are now. So here's ways you can help. And I want to stress that I know that this page is kind of busy, and my email address is claire@toxicsaction.org. My card is on that table over there, so if you can't see everything you want to see, I can also leave this piece of paper and you can take a picture of it with your phone. I can email it to you. Don't worry if you can't get everything that you want. So one of the major ways you can help stop this subsidy from going through is to participate in the process of Eversource and National Grid trying to take advantage of it. So Eversource has a docket right now, and there's a comment period open until May 23rd. I have a couple email addresses here of where you want to send those comments. There will also be a public hearing for that particular application in Walpole, May 25th. It's my birthday. There are 2 other dockets from National Grid. So National Grid wants to contract with Kinder Morgan. They also want to contract with Spectra. They want it all and use the subsidy as much as possible. So there's email addresses of where to send that. Those are due by May 11th, so you've got some time. And there will be one of those hearings for that is this Thursday with this person whose name I've forgotten. Anne. So if you want to go to Boston on Thursday and participate in one of these hearings, you have the opportunity. There will also be ones in May 3rd in Stoughton and May 11th in Methuen. So definitely getting your voice heard shows a lot, and I definitely encourage you to participate in that. So let me just share with you a couple talking points if you're thinking about commenting. So the first thing is that this rigs the market, right? So we have a free market, quote unquote, when it comes to gas. And if we're subsidizing these electric companies to buy gas from Kinder Morgan, it totally morphs and perverts that whole system at the expense of families and businesses like you and I. So that's number one, and I think should resonate with someone like Governor Baker. The second thing up here is that this is a 20-year subsidy. 20 years. It's a really long time, especially when you think about where energy technology innovation is going. There's a whole lot that could happen in 20 years, and we should not be locking ourselves into that commitment. So that's number two. And then the third thing is that if folks are familiar, Attorney General Healy did a report that clearly demonstrated that this isn't needed. And her office is participating in this as well, so helping chime in and echo those comments helps. So these are 3 areas that if you want to chime in and tell from your perspective, I think would make a really big impact. There's a couple other ways to help. So those are that's a kind of reactive, so way to participate. The proactive other stuff that's happening is there's a couple bills moving through our legislature. So there's one bad bill that would actually bolster the subsidy. That's House Bill 2881. Definitely oppose that one. And then there's a couple bills that would actually weaken the subsidy and potentially neutralize it, which would be really great because that would Kinder Morgan would lose a lot of its customers. It would have a weaker case to FERC that this is even needed. And that's House Bill 2494, Senate Bill 1769. We definitely support those. And so, like, the takeaway message here is you want to definitely contact your elected officials, your state senator, your state rep, and really Governor Baker. He's business oriented. The fact that he's proposing that we subsidize gas for 20 years just doesn't make any sense. And in fact, my read on him is he doesn't really talk about this very much in public because it isn't kind of an uncomfortable space for him to be in. So I definitely think that he should be hearing from all of you. That's all I have to say. There's 2 handouts over there on that table along with my card. I'm really excited for you all to participate in this, and I'm very happy to answer questions over email or call me. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm Carolyn Sellers. I live in Townsend, Massachusetts, and I've been following this project for more than 2 years. It's like Claire. It's been a long time. I am an affected landowner in Townsend. I'm on the Fitchburg lateral, which doesn't actually go to Fitchburg, only goes to Lunenburg, but they call it the Fitchburg lateral. But anyway, I've been involved in a lot. I helped organize the statewide summit 2 years ago for some of you that have been in October of 2014, for those of you who've been there. And right now I'm working, there were a group of landowners who kind of started organizing last year to see if we could work together, having affected landowners work together to more effectively fight the project. And also, we also want to provide affected landowners the information that they need, because there's so much information out in the world right now about this pipeline project. There's the whole Kinder Morgan, all that application information, and there's all the energy stuff that's so much related, all the tariff information, and people who, I find a lot of landowners, particularly I know the ones in Townsend really well, and they're saying, oh, just tell me what I need to do and when I need to do it. I just can't, it's hard enough. And I know, every morning I look out my window and there I can see where the pipeline will go. So I know that the stress you're feeling now where you're living and thinking about how can I possibly do this to my property that was going to be my retirement savings, right? So what we're doing a landowner needs assessment, and we have a SurveyMonkey tool open now on SurveyMonkey. I have a piece of paper that has the link here. I'm also going to send that link to the Dracut Facebook page and your website. So we're asking anybody who's an affected property owner, and for this purpose, we use an affected property owner can be someone who's directly on the pipeline. It can be someone who is next to the compressor station. You can be within a half a mile of the compressor station and still be an affected property owner as far as FERC is concerned. And one of the reasons that it's important to get affected property owners together, Claire mentioned how FERC balances the public convenience or the damage of the environment versus the necessity of the project. One of the things they have to balance is how much eminent domain takings they're going to take. So there is apparently, we're hearing from a lot of different lawyers and things that there is some power if we can get a bunch of property owners together who will say, we're going to hold out to the very end. You're going to have to take our land before we're going to give up. And we let FERC know that, then FERC will see, there's 300 people here whose land we're going to take. Kinder Morgan doesn't want that to happen. That's why they're going out, and they'll start going out and asking people to sign these easements. And if you've listened to any of the lawyers who have spoken, if you listen to any of the local lawyers who have spoken, like the McLaughlin brothers from Boston, they say, hold out for eminent domain, because you're always going to get more money by holding out. Because judges and juries, they hate seeing people's property taken. And when it comes down to eminent domain, what the McLaughlin brothers say is that they would take your case on a contingency basis. And so you wouldn't have to pay for a lawyer because they'd represent you, and they would get more money for you because they have the experts that can counteract Kinder Morgan's experts. So it's really good to hold out for eminent domain. That's my own personal take from what I've been learning from things. There is a lawyers from Ohio who have come up to New Hampshire. I'm not sure if they've come to Dracut yet, but there's a group of lawyers from Ohio who are coming out and telling people, oh, come on, sign with us, we'll get a good deal for you, the Kinder Morgan. We don't want that. We don't want this pipeline. I don't know any landowner who wants this pipeline. I haven't, maybe there's one or two, I don't know, but I know we have 50 property owners in Townsend. Only one of them, of that 50, is willing to have Kinder Morgan survey their land and be a staging area. And he doesn't have very many friends in town anymore. So, but I think the important thing is everybody to think about how you can work together. The landowners organization, maybe you want to be part of the landowners organization to get information, but you don't want to get into the whole eminent domain thing, and that's okay too. The important thing is if you fill out the survey, the needs assessment, we'll figure out, which landowners want to do what and how we can have landowners. We have landowners from 3 states. We issued the survey, we released about a week ago, and we already have 175 people who have filled it out from 34 different communities across 3 states. So there is some interest in this. So that's why I'm here tonight to let you know about it. I'm Carol. My email is casellars, SELLARS, @gmail.com, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And I'll be leaving some pieces of paper here that have information about the survey on it. Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you again to the Board of Selectmen, because not only has the Board of Selectmen intervened in this DPU hearing, but the Board of Selectmen has also sent a very strong letter to FERC regarding the movement of the compressor station and the fact that we haven't had a scoping session for the place where the compressor station is now. So when you have a Board of Selectmen that actually pays attention, listens to the people, then the federal government really has to observe the law and not kind of gloss over the community, and that's what we want to do. With the case of the docket coming up on Thursday at the DPU, same issue. What we have here is an ability for people to go to the DPU and do oral comments in front of the hearing officers. There's 2 different hearing officers. There's Officer Leopold and Officer Gold. Leopold is handling the docket between our National Grid and the Northeast Energy Direct Pipeline. There's also going to be another hearing there at the same time, where the hearing is going to be between National Grid and Access Northeast. Access Northeast is actually an alternative to Northeast Energy Direct, which is an expansion of the existing Spectra pipeline that runs east of here. It runs all the way up through Methuen and all the way up the Maine coast, all the way to Nova Scotia, where the export terminals would take place. And a small branch of that pipeline runs from Methuen into Dracut, and right around St. Francis Church is where the 2 pipelines would possibly hook up. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of this because we can do that in the breakout group. But if you want to go to the breakout group to go on Thursday, remember Anna's going to be doing that. And if you want to go to a different breakout group, but you still want to submit written comments in this, there's a website on here you go to at the DPU. You look at the dockets recent, you search for 16-07, and file all your comments under that, because that's the docket that pertains to the Northeast Energy Direct Pipeline and the National Grid proposal. And just going to say one point about this proposal is that they are claiming that if they build the pipeline, electricity rates are going to go way down. One of the things we've noticed, if you look at your National Grid bill for the month of end of January into early February, most of the people in Dracut are finding that their rates for electricity have already gone down between 30 and 55% in 1 year. And that is because of 2 things. The rates that's been charged for the for electricity service, the electricity supply, have gone down because it's not as bad a winter as, in other words, the rates that they had back in October when National Grid set their rates are lower than they were a year ago. And on top of that, our town manager and our Board of Selectmen approved a community aggregation program, which has also allowed all Dracut residents to share in a rate reduction. And the rate reduction, as far as I know, is about 37% of your supply portion of your bill. So that works out to about 18% of your entire bill. So the third thing is it's been warmer. So you add up the 18% and you add up the 15%, you add up the fact that it's been warmer, that's why people are getting 50% reductions in their rates. National Grid is saying, hey, we're going to get a reduction in your rate of $1 billion savings, but they're comparing it to the rates that were in place in 2014. 2014 was a very wild year, very, very cold in the Northwest, Minnesota, in Nebraska, froze a lot of wells. A lot of the supply of natural gas coming in from the ocean on LNG was disrupted because it was all going to Japan because they had an earthquake and they had to use LNG instead of using nuclear power. All the nuclear reactors were melting down in Japan, everybody remembers. So, they're comparing to a year that's never going to happen again. And they're claiming they're going to save $1 billion. So one of the points that we can make is that they are not being upfront with the consumer about what's going to happen. And if we make that point clearly, loud and clear, we get it into the media, we get it to Charlie Breaker, put in written comments, and then maybe the Board of Selectmen will do another letter to somebody if we can draft one up. We have a good chance of actually defeating this. We're not alone. There's communities all over the state that want to defeat this. So anyway, look for me if you want a copy of the flyer. I have about 40 of them. It's about as many pieces of paper as I had left at home. And I will give you some more details about how you can file the written comments, but you see me in person during the breakout.
They need to demonstrate to FERC that the gas is needed. As of right now, the customers that they're lining up are the local heating companies, and now through Charlie Baker's subsidy scheme, electric companies. It's still possible they could get export customers that are explicitly saying export. To my knowledge, that has not happened yet.
This is an important thing for you all to understand because it is a great question. Because the export thing has been in the news recently, and people want to know how does this affect it. What happens? The reason that Kinder Morgan says we need gas to generate electricity is because there's a dozen or 2 days in the winter months when we're heating our homes on those really cold days, and we're using a lot of gas, and they want to generate electricity with gas, and they have these peaks, these spikes, and there's times where the regular capacity of the pipeline can't handle the needs for all those things. Now, there's a couple ways you can meet that. You can meet that by reducing demand. You can meet it by using LNG, by injecting LNG on one side of on the eastern side of the state. So there's only those, dozen or 2 dozen days a year where we really have a capacity problem. So what Kinder Morgan could do is, if they or any of the or Spectra, if they get this approval to have us help pay for their pipelines, then there's 344 days a year that they can be having excess capacity that they can sell for export. So Kinder Morgan will say, people say, well, do you have a contract for export? And Kinder Morgan says, no, we have no contracts for export. But what they don't tell you is, when you talk to them one-on-one, like people did in Northfield and Greenfield, and said, are you talking to any export companies? And their sales manager will say, oh yeah, we're talking to Bearhead, we're talking to Faraday, we're talking to all these people who have been approved. So they are talking to them. It is part of their business plan. They're just not, they want to keep that hidden. It's like their dirty little secret. And so it's important for all of us to talk, to get it out in the news, just like it was in WBUR a few weeks ago. We want to get this, information out as much as we can to let people know that if you look at the whole, this need issue is a critical thing because it's very complicated, this energy business, and they like to make it look really black and white, but it's not. And you have to look at the need and what is the need, and is export a need or not? That's something to think about. So, good question.
I just want to add, when electricity and gas comes up, if folks don't already know, we in Massachusetts already get about 50% of our electricity from gas. We're really overly dependent on it as a fuel source. And the only metaphor I can think of that really adequately shows what I mean is like, if you put on too many pounds and you no longer fit your pants, right? You've grown weight. It's like saying the solution is to get bigger pants. Let's get more pipelines instead of saying like, let's wean ourselves off. Let's actually diversify and get other things. So I don't know to what extent gas power plants have been talked about in this region, but it's really not a solution. I love that question. If this is such a juicy business deal, why do we need to subsidize it, right? Why do the companies have to pass on all of the risk to us? It's because it's a really risky business deal they're trying to make. I think that, in and of itself speaks volumes, that they need to lock in this 20-year-long contract where you, me, my dad, all the businesses across Massachusetts have to subsidize it. I just leave it there. I don't know if that helps, if you think that would work, but that's honestly how I go there.
I have something else to add to in early February, one of the things I'd be spending more of my time on, if I wasn't spending pipeline time on, was helping to decrease the influence of money in politics. So that's a big problem. And I went up to a meeting in New Hampshire for the New Hampshire Rebellion in early February. Before I did that, I did some research into the lobbying expenses of Kinder Morgan. In 2012, Kinder Morgan never spent any money lobbying in Massachusetts. You can check it, the Secretary of State has a record. They spent no money before 2012. In 2012, they spent $20,000. Now this is about the same time as we can find on the internet of when we started hearing about this bullet line, which became NED. Last year, Kinder Morgan spent $712,000 in Massachusetts to lobby. And so, if it's such a great idea, if the money's going to go down, why are they spending so much money on lobbying? So that's something to think about.
I hope you enjoyed today's presentation by Claire Miller and Carolyn Sellers, who recently spoke at Dracut Pipeline Awareness Group's presentation at the American Legion. For today's Constitutional Minute, I just want to take a second to thank the residents from Dracut who joined me, as well as many folks from across the Commonwealth, at Department of Public Utilities hearing yesterday on dockets number 1605 and 1607 in Boston. This particular hearing was important because it was in regards to the tariff which is being proposed to pay for Kinder Morgan's pipeline through National Grid's ratepayers. I found it ironic that we were talking about a tariff in the shadows of the Boston Tea Party Museum. A tariff in America to benefit a for-profit company. It's foundationally wrong and flies in the face of the very men and women who gave their lives to establish these United States. I hope that the board members from Department of Public Utilities heard that message loudly and clearly. And I hope that this particular project is not expected to be paid for by the ratepayers of the Commonwealth, who for the vast majority oppose this pipeline. And today's last word is a blessing in honor of St. Patrick's Day. For all of my viewers, may you always have work for your hands to do. May your pockets hold always a coin or two. May the sun shine bright on your window pane. May the rainbows be certain to follow each rain. May the hand of a friend always be near you. And may God fill your heart with gladness to cheer you. Happy St. Patrick's Day. God bless all of you, and God bless America.